Examination of the male growth process. Consider that as a male, one is born with masculine features and abilities. Every male human being who comes into the world, again, irregardless of ethnic orientation or national affiliation, is born with masculine features and abilities. This is a biological factor. Well, as time progresses and as that male grows and develops physically as well as emotionally, he transitions, often unconsciously, into boyhood, the state of being a male who is naive in his reasoning. What is distinctive about the boy is that he has the ability to think. However, he lacks the experience such that he is very naive and green in his reasoning ability. As the boy transitions and continues to grow, with proper guidance and instruction from a father and other men, he learns how to develop a sense of responsibility for he and all that is within his domain. In the state of being, or the manhood state, this is the state of being a responsible male in thought, action, and reputation. For a second, let us back up and make a distinction between boy and man. The boy uses his reasoning for self-gratification and gain. However, the man uses his reasoning for responsible action for himself and others who may be under his responsibility. His action is expressed, and his thought rather is expressed in his action and the reputation that others around him come to assign to him. Then lastly, in this process from male to fatherhood, there is the fatherhood state, the state of being a responsible procreator in the family, in the context of family. Here it's important to recognize the fact that, different from just being a man, a father is one who reproduces life, and not just reproduce life, because we find chronologically that the boy at the age of approximately 13 can reproduce life. But the father is a man who has prepared himself responsibly and who now replicates the life cycle through responsible procreation in the context of family. By that we mean he does that along with his female counterpart. This is planned, it is orchestrated, and it is something that they work together to do. He becomes a man by aligning himself with his female counterpart. Then he and his female counterpart become one by producing in the family context. That involves commitment. So for a second, let us talk about maleness. Born with masculine features and abilities. There are clearly identifiable biological factors of maleness, such as the sexual reproduction organs. Even when you can't tell by the face or by the hands so much, or the head, it is distinctive that you have a male from a female. The distinctive quality, rather, is reproductive organs. Yes, there are individuals who are born as what we know as hermaphrodites. However, a normal male has masculine reproductive indicators. During the early infancy and growth, he has specific physical and emotional dependencies. And we're speaking from approximately age 0 to about 4 years old, from birth to 4 years old. There are certain things physical needs that must be attended to by someone, some caregiver. as well as emotional attachments that are developed over time. These are characteristics, again, of the early male experience. During the growth process or growth phase, he unconsciously learned certain lessons, such as trust, distrust, autonomy, shame, etc., typically between birth and 9. It is important for fathers to understand that the reason you must work to live under the same roof with your children, with your sons as well as your daughters, is that there they learn to trust you as a voice of authority, as the image of security. Or they may learn to distrust you and assign that trust elsewhere. They learn to become a bit more independent or autonomous in their action. And if they don't have the proper guidance and instruction, they can learn to become shameful of their attempts to mimic things that they've learned but fall short and be scolded or disciplined for them. So it's so very important for, in this early stage of growth and development, for the male to have a father figure, certain male image that they will learn to trust and to model themselves after. Then, as we look at the maleness stage, another factor is the point he becomes, at this point rather, he becomes less physically and emotionally dependent on his caretakers, and he slips into boyhood. We're looking at typically between 5 and 9 years old. What most behavioral psychologists indicate is, or agree rather, is that somewhere between 5 and 9 years old, the male begins to shape his character and identify certain key examples that he will strive to emulate or model himself after. It's so very important, again, that fathers are in homes so that male children can have proper examples and role models. Unfortunately, there are children who lack that, and it's important that the mother and other family support figures ensure that that is in place, that those males can be exposed to appropriate and proactive male examples. This is a clear indication of the maleness stage, typical behavior of a 5 to 9 year old, or as we look back even further, birth to about 9 years old. Incidentally, it's important to realize that during this chronological period of growth and development, it is said that this is where all of us really carve out or shape our core belief system or experiences. And if we in later years have a breakdown or emotional issue, often we were able to reflect back to key experiences between this growth period, typically between 5 and 9 years old.
Come on, break it down for me.
So now let us look at boyhood. By boyhood we mean the state of being a male who is both naive and cocky in his reasoning. Again, his maleness does not change. He's just grown a little bit older. And now he's learned that I can not only crawl, I can walk. Not only can I walk, but I can run. However, there are certain experiences that the lack in years does not afford him the knowledge of. Perhaps the most notable stage of boyhood is the adolescent period, where boys tend to aggressively demonstrate their abilities. It's an age where they naturally want to wrestle or to stage some sort of competition, some sort of challenge. It's important to understand that it's not so much that they mean to be a brute, as it is subconsciously they strive to prove to themselves that they can get in where they fit in. They can hold their own among others. It's important to understand, as we term, by we mean BFC, uh, uh, the Manding Warrior experience. In our textbook, we define the Manding Warrior experience as that age where typically 12 to 13 year olds, between 12, somewhere about 12, and maybe 18, 19 years of age, males find themselves trying to prove that they have the ability to maintain within a group of other males or the world. This stage is generally expressed through what is coined as the Manding Warrior experience, as we just pointed out. This is a very, very key experience, and when working with young men, particularly those who have went astray, it's important to understand this is where we have to begin our work. That age between about 12 and about 18 or 19 years of age. But specifically that age where they become more independent and they may or may not have proper guidance and earlier role modeling such that they're prone to make mistakes. If they have the guidance, those mistakes are less destructive and they can be productively shown. However, without that proper guidance, it can become a menace to society. This chronological phase is also marked by male character identification. The boy seeks to present himself in a certain form or fashion, such as the way he wears his hair, the choice in clothing, identity with certain groups and or peers, as well as certain thought processes or certain behaviors that he might align himself with. It's important to note that gang mentality is very indicated. This behavior is very indicative in gang mentality. From an early age, a boy who seeks to identify and validate himself through a group of other individuals who share the same idioms or the same expressions. This is what drives typical gang behavior. Because he is naive, he does not know how to separate fact from fiction, good from bad, and right from wrong. It is important again that he learns that association with other men is a positive thing if he associates and aligns himself with individuals who are engaged in positive, proactive activities. During this phase, the male experiences a chronological and physiological and emotional transition. Often this is unconscious. Typically in schools, it's important to consider that as males in the middle school years or 7th and 8th grade are going through chronological changes as well as physiological changes. The greatest indication is puberty, expressions of puberty. You have bumps and they begin to grow hair in private areas. Some of them begin to show hair on their face, certainly under the arms. Their bodies begin to grow and develop. One breast may be a little larger than the others, and they notice a difference in their height and their weight and certain abilities. These all can be somewhat disturbing or frightening to someone without proper processing and guidance. And it is important that you understand it does affect them emotionally, even if they don't want to talk about it or find it difficult to express their thoughts. It is on their mind. What you'll find is typically males will go and hide and be to themselves as they express their deepest thoughts, out of fear that there may be something wrong, it may bring embarrassment. However, it's important that the father figure understands that this is a key period where you open up to these males. Also, I should add that typically, because they have grown physically, or physiologically, parents tend to want to step back and give them more freedom. The reality is, even though they have a naive and cocky sense of independence, they truly want you to stay by and shadow them, just in case there may be moments that they're uncertain about. While they wouldn't tell you that, typically, it's important for you to understand that as having been there yourself. Okay, we've talked about boyhood, we've talked about maleness. Now let us discuss the distinctive manhood state. The state of being a responsible male in thought, action, and reputation. First, let me reiterate the fact that the man is still a male. He is a transitioned boy. What marks him from maleness and boyhood is the fact that he demonstrates in his thoughts and action responsible behavior. This is the basis of his reputation. The single most identifiable characteristic of this state of masculine existence is the responsibility, or demonstrating responsibility. Recognizing the natural attraction to his female counterpart, the responsible male prepares himself for life commitment. By that, it is meant that a responsible male understands that he has a natural attraction and a natural desire to be with and to consummate ultimately with a female human being. As we learned earlier, God made him that way. There is nothing wrong with being attracted to and interested in becoming one with a female. In fact, this should be the basis of instruction in early malehood, to prepare one to become responsible as they interact with a female. This again is God's intended purpose. Recognizing that male naturally wants to become with female, and again this could be an unconscious thing, because that's what makes one a whole man. That's how one reached the pinnacle of manhood, is to align himself with his female counterpart. In doing so, he fulfills God's purpose from creation. Unfortunately, there are many social barriers to responsible manhood, such that many males or many boys never grow into becoming men. They are stuck in the mending warrior, or this naive state of behavior. Without proper guidance and redirection of their social and emotional growth and development, they may continue to be lost well into the 70s or 80s or beyond. However, what's important about manhood is a demonstration of responsibility. Again, he commits himself, he prepares himself financially, socially, emotionally, spiritually, to live a lifelong commitment with his female counterpart. Through fulfillment of promise in marriage, the responsible male is apt for the august state of fatherhood. It is here that he becomes ready to become a father or enter into fatherhood. I want to emphasize the fact that this is the precursor or the first step to fatherhood, different from manhood, boyhood, and maleness.
They call me the preacher and I'm here to teach you. If you open your eyes, I know
All right, as we just stated, fatherhood is the highest or the august state of male or masculine existence. The state of being a responsible male procreator in the context of marriage. Fatherhood is marked by the divine process of responsible replication of life. As earlier indicated, the context of marriage is the only context in which God the Creator endowed man to replicate life. Now, by marriage, what we mean is a process of committing oneself to the responsibility of taking care of and extending life from one generation to the next. It's important to understand that the man understands he does not directly commit himself only to his female counterpart, but his commitment is to his Creator, that he will responsibly care for and carry out God's will for him in the context of marriage. Thus, when he replicates life, it becomes a divine process. Divine because it is done in the will of God. A father is guided by the principles of creation. By that it is meant, when God decided that he would make man in his likeness and in his image. His express purpose and intention was to replicate life and to continue what God had started in humanity. So, the man acts as a father when he responsibly reproduces life with his female counterpart, and he represents God's principle of creation in the context of family. Yes, anyone can make a baby, but it takes a father to raise children in the will of the Creator. The father is a priest in the family and the community. The sole responsibility for ensuring spiritual growth and development for the whole family is that of the father, as indicated by God himself. The scripture stated again in Genesis that he made male and female. As we further examine the text in the 2nd chapter of Genesis, we see that God intended for man to take care of his creation, and that female would help him to do so. So it is man who serves as a priest, a minister, or mediator between his wife, his offspring, and within the general community. This is the basis of a religious community or congregation. Each man brings his family into a collective worship or congregational worship before the Creator or before deity. So again, man is the priest in the family and within the larger community context. Lastly, his greatest treasures are the basis of faith, his marriage commitment, and the promise made through his offspring.